efforts are focused on creating opportunities for connection, being a catalyst for business growth, and a champion for the business community. We do this through our member education and programming, exclusive benefits, and supporting our member needs, including those of the workforce. Public affairs efforts also sit under the membership umbrella, as do the 750 members and a budget of $1.5 million. For destination marketing, as you know, we have a 2% lodging tax, 75% of which goes towards tourism promotion. We have a total budget this year of about $4.5 million, which is very similar to 2025. We focus our efforts in destination marketing and management, special events, group sales, and visitor services. Membership and destination marketing together work towards the vision of Aspen Chamber Resort Association, which is creating an environment for Aspen to thrive. As I mentioned, the budget for 2026 is very similar to this last year, 2025, so not a huge amount of changes in the dollars allocated in each line item, with the exception of increasing special events expenditures. As you know, we have agreed to partner and take on evening activations for the 4th of July and New Year's Eve in 2026. Per our contract, we have a 60-40 split between operations and payroll and then advertising and marketing services. Right now with this draft, we're sitting at about 35%, so we are a bit leaner than that 40% requirement. As a note, we have 9 full-time employees and 7 part-time employees against that budget. And this investment into destination marketing comes back to the community in the form of sales tax dollars, benefiting both residents and visitors. In addition to looking at budget initiatives, I just want to set the stage for some 2026 travel trends. Aspen is pacing up for this winter season about 9%, which is a relief as we were concerned about what that could look like given our reliability on international travelers during the winter season. We do know the booking window has shortened, so people are booking much closer to their arrival date, which does skew some occupancy as well. As an early outlook for 2026, travelers are feeling cautious about future financial state given economic and political uncertainty. However, we are seeing a bifurcation in the marketplace where luxury travel continues to perform, where mid and lower level has dropped off fairly significantly. So Aspen as a destination is sort of strategically positioned to continue to benefit from that luxury travel experience. Sorry.
Just curious, I've never seen that term before.
Slow reset is like intentional travel, so less about doing a to-do list and kind of being really mindful about spending time with your loved ones and stuff like that.
Thanks.
So Aspen also is kind of a good place to reconnect like that. Back to, I don't know if you can.
Really glitched out.
You have to reshare.
Okay. So the next slide is gonna come, I promise. It wouldn't be a meeting without me presenting on touching on the Aspen Destination Management Plan, which, as you know, we took a lead on, but it was created for the entire community. So it aligns with many city and county priorities. And as your partner in promoting and managing the destination, we continue to work in lockstep with many organizations to bring these strategies to life. This serves as our strategic guiding document for all of the work in destination marketing. We maintain that marketing is a management tool, and the overall goal of the plan is, of course, to protect quality of life and preserve the very reason people enjoy coming here. All the work we're about to discuss funnels up to the 3 pillars identified in the plan, which are address visitor pressure, enhance the Aspen experience, and preserve small town character. We run year-round seasonal content campaigns and high-level branding campaigns to inspire travel to Aspen. Our content campaigns promote the depth of content on aspenchamber.org, and the branding campaigns, one of which you can see to the left of the screen, highlight and lean into our key differentiators in a crowded landscape. Campaigns are promoted in our feeder markets, which include San Francisco, LA, Dallas, Houston, Chicago, New York, Miami, Denver and the Front Range, and of course seasonally direct fly markets, which now include Charlotte, Austin, and Phoenix. In addition, our group sales team works hard to create an occupancy bed base by attracting groups to the destination. There are typically a longer lead time for groups, and they are bringing meeting and wedding planners into the destination so they can experience it firsthand and return with their group business. We also run locally focused campaigns which highlight the arts and culture calendar offerings and responsible tourism messaging, like how to recreate responsibly. We have both paid and organic social media campaigns, which of course drive traffic back to the website, as well as inspire travel and capture visitors during the dreaming and planning phase of trip planning. Photography and video creation and capture are essential to tell the story of the destination, so we invest heavily in our local photographers to utilize their skills throughout our channels. We also produce 2 seasonal brochures because our visitor centers do find that there is a demographic of traveler that still does want a paper brochure. And those are distributed around town as well as around the state. The Colorado Tourism Office operates 10 welcome centers around the state. And finally, we do a system-wide buyout of WeCycle panels each summer. Sometimes we've focused on the Aspen Pledge, other times we utilize it as a space to drive back to the events calendar or convey responsible and respectful visitation messaging. As mentioned, group sales efforts help create a base of occupancy that leisure guests build upon. So in 2026, we'll be offering a master account credit as a booking incentive to add value to encourage group bookings. That means if a group is staying at the St. Regis, we provide sort of a group master account credit towards that entire group stay at the St. Regis. And each year, in partnership with Snowmass Tourism, Aspen One, and local hotel partners, ACRA participates in 4 to 5 sales missions and trade shows in various top feeder markets to promote consideration of Aspen as a meeting and event location. ACRA will also host meeting and event planners in the destination to introduce them directly to our community partners and educate them on the opportunities available for hosting groups in Aspen. We do a lot of sponsorship. We believe it's important to provide sponsorship dollars to organizations or events in the community that provide destination-worthy and locally serving experiences that align with the destination management plan as they enhance the Aspen experience for both visitors and locals. Through our sponsorship dollars, we support legacy events that support our community's history in snow sports, like the X Games. We have historically provided $165,000 each year for the past 20 plus years towards that event. We also support events like Gay Ski Week, which focus on inclusivity, and we were thrilled to support the new Aspen Literary Festival, which brought a diverse group of visitors into the destination this past September. You also may know we sponsor the Friday morning uphills on Buttermilk to create a space for community as part of our efforts to maintain small town character. And throughout the year, we also provide smaller scale sponsorships to Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers. We sponsor 2 of their community work days. We also sponsor the winter season of Potbelly Perspectives at ACES, which is a natural tie-in to ACRA's own desire to promote responsible travel and again, create a space for community. ACRA has supported the Aspen Historical Society's annual Sweet Pea giveaway each spring. We make the Sweet Pea packets available at the visitor centers, a great way to celebrate Aspen's official flower. ACRA supports Aspen sister cities through a volunteer board position, fundraising efforts, and cultural exchange financial support. This nonprofit's mission to support and facilitate student and cultural exchanges aligns with our focus on partnerships while strengthening community connections. And in addition to sponsorship, we also have special events. And of course, everybody loves the special events department. And it's coming. There we go. We're continuing excellence by producing the premier culinary event in the country, the Food and Wine Classic in Aspen, as well as the beloved Winter Skull event. 2026 will be the 75th anniversary of Winter Skull, which coincides with the Colorado 150 and US 250. And we're proud to announce that we have secured a drone show from the Colorado Tourism Office for that Winter Skull weekend. So that'll be really exciting. And then, as mentioned previously, ACRA is excited to partner with the city of Aspen to produce 4th of July, the evening activation and New Year's Eve for 2026. Partnerships are coming soon to a screen near you. We love to partner. At the national level, of course, we have frequently partnered with the U.S. Forest Service on our Maroon Bells initiatives. But in 2026, we also will have the opportunity to potentially partner with them, Carbondale Tourism, the Roaring Fork Outdoor Coalition, which is made up of land managers throughout the valley. Oh, wow. I'll just keep talking and you'll see my.
Okay.
Roaring Fork Outdoor Coalition, which is made up of land managers throughout the valley, the Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, and the Forest Conservancy to try and close a gap that they've identified with visitor information on the White River National Forest District. Currently, all White River calls are being directed to the Dillon Ranger District, where their phones are answered by volunteers. 90% of the calls are in-person visits at the Aspen Sopris Ranger Station in Carbondale are by visitors desiring to recreate on public lands in the Aspen area. And right now the office is closed and no one's answering the phones. So there's a big community-wide effort to try and close that gap for our visitors and residents. In addition, at the state level, the Colorado Tourism Office is a wonderful partner to us. They've taken the lead on the Michelin Marketing Program, which has been a success for Aspen, with Bosque receiving a star and Element 47, Prospect, and Mawas all being named recommended restaurants. 2025 was the final year in a 3-year contract, so it's unclear how that program will continue at the state level, so we're awaiting information from that, but we have earmarked funds for now. We also have been part of the Colorado Historic Opera House's circuit as a partner with the Wheeler Opera House for 3 years, and 2026 will be the 4th year of that work. And we were also recently awarded a grant from the Colorado Tourism Office in collaboration with Snowmass Tourism for accessible travel in partnership with Wheel the World, which aims to amplify accessible travel spaces and destinations across Colorado. Locally, of course, we are part of the Fly Aspen Snowmass Air Service Development Committee, which works to maintain and improve air service into ASE, and it's exciting that we'll have a new direct service from Charlotte beginning December 19th. We continue to participate in both the Maroon Bells Comprehensive Recreation Management Plan and Communications Group, and we partner with RFMBA to promote the Gold Level Ride Center and Aspen Cycling Club on safe bike messaging, e-bikes included. And then including, in addition to our accessible travel program with Snowmass Tourism, we also partner with them on international PR. And then we do want to note that we have 2 staff members participating on both the Entrance to Aspen Working Group and the Coalition for 21st Century Transportation. Sustainability is a little bit of a buzzword, but when we think about it, we're thinking about it from a social, economic, and environmental perspective, and we're looking at its importance to travelers. So 75% of travelers intend to make more sustainable travel choices over the next year, something we consider greatly when we're looking at our marketing initiatives. In 2026, we will continue the Colorado Green Business Network of Aspen, which we launched in partnership with your own City of Aspen sustainability team. It recognizes businesses for excellence in sustainable operations, equity, and resource management, as well as provides free technical assistance to those businesses getting assessed. 2026 will also be the 3rd year of our Mountain Ideal recognition. The Mountain Ideal standard was developed to address sustainability in mountain environments. That was a pretty rigorous process we went through. And again, it's for all of Aspen. It's just that ACRA took the lead on that. And then, of course, we continue to promote the Aspen Pledge. And as a reminder, if you haven't signed it yet, you can do so and designate either Independence Pass or RFOV to receive your 1880 on behalf from ACRA on your behalf. No money from you. Public relations, soon to come to your screen. We work with our PR agency, Backbone Media, to ensure all PR efforts are aligned with the Aspen Destination Management Plan. Some of our goals for PR in 2026 are to increase affinity, awareness, and positive sentiment towards ACRA locally, show alignment between tourism values and community values nationally, position ACRA as a thought leader in sustainable tourism and destination management. The photo on the bottom is actually from Mountain Towns 2030, and it was just prettier to have a picture from outside than inside a conference room. But that was an example we actually presented on the collaboration between ACRA and the city and how it relates to tourism. And then we work with the UK and Mexico as international markets. This is one of my favorite slides. AspenChamber.org is getting a facelift. So in February 2026, the website will have a new design. Here's a little sneak preview of some of those design elements. And then another thing, just as we're looking at informational websites and the impacts of AI search to traffic to websites, it is impacting that pretty significantly. So we're looking at how to incorporate tools into our search to remain the trusted source of information for both residents and visitors. Research, just a missing photo. I don't know why, it'll show up soon. And you know how I love data to back up a story. So at ACRA, we firmly believe you can't manage what you can't measure. So in 2026, we'll have our typical Destimetrics hotel occupancy data, which is brought to the community in partnership between ACRA, Snohomish Tourism, and Aspen One. In addition, we're hoping to have Winter School economic impact data and continue with our month at a glance data deck. We also need to update a few reports, including the transient inventory study, which was last updated in 2023. That's an analysis of the number and type of rental units and pillows available for short-term rental in Aspen, Basalt, Carbondale, and Snowmass. So that includes traditionally managed units and non-professionally managed. And then the visitor profile study is due for a redo, which provides demographics and trip characteristics for our visitors, which was also last updated in 2023. And then this recently came to our attention that it would be a good time to update the arts and culture economic impact, which we had partnered with the city on, and Snowmass Tourism in 2019. It would be great to collect that data in 2026 prior to the airport closure. The visitor service, as you well know, we moved into the Armory in May of 2025, and at that time we completed a branding refresh of the Armory, Airport, and Pavilion, creating consistency across the visitor center outlets. You can see both the Armory and the airport examples on the left there. And then at the airport in 2026, we'll continue to shower our airport employees. This extends from county employees, SkyWest, American Airlines, TSA, Air Traffic Control. We shower them with snacks and bubble waters and pizza to show how grateful we are to them during those super busy months. We also do a seasonal kickoff event for community organizations to share all that they have going on with our guest service staff, and we plan training for the staff and community field trips. We're looking into AI phone and web chats to answer frequently asked questions that are both asked at the airport and at our main center. And then, of course, you know there is a closure in May, and we do want to let you know that our guest service staff will continue to support our visitors and residents as needed. And yay, operations, thank you all very much for your support of the new home in Obermeyer Place. So from a budget perspective, we will reflect rent switching to a mortgage for the second half of 2026. We are also hoping to add a new full-time employee for community engagement. We're just feeling a little spread thin, so we'll add a new full-time employee. And then also in 2026, the entire organization will be launching a new strategic plan called Aspen Forward. And finally, since we're here, there's quite a lot of questions about airport closure. As you know, the anticipated closure from April to November of 2027. We have spoken with our advertising agencies, and for 2026, we'll maintain our campaigns as usual because we don't want to cause confusion in the marketplace, but we will message about the closure in early 27 in collaboration with county comms. We have been in touch with all arts and culture organizations, and most are proceeding as normal for 2027. The airlines are planning to add lift into Eagle and Grand Junction to accommodate for our lack of capacity. And then we're just working as a multi-pronged approach to solving how to get in and out of Aspen with that Fly Aspen Snowmass Committee. So just want to acknowledge that because I know that's long-range planning. And that is the end. We made it, tech difficulties and all.
Well, that was a lot of information to bring us. Council members, any questions or clarifications you'd like to ask? John, and then,
Go ahead, John.
okay.
First of all, I just wanted to say it was really nice meeting your husband the other day. Secondly, I also wanted to know what the slow reset travel was, and I'm very intrigued by that. That sounds like a great fit for Aspen. I guess the main question I want to ask you is, and it's a little off topic, but how important do you feel that attending the Mountain Town 2030 conference was?
I think it's heavily suited towards municipalities, but I thought it was a pretty good, I went to a couple of the sessions and I found it pretty interesting how we have worked together as public-private entities seem to be a way forward. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was a good model to share, but it did feel sort of more geared towards municipalities and
right.
sort of policy-making bodies, which, we can amplify your voice, but we don't have that ability to set policy.
Right. No, I was really pleased to see ACRA did a presentation there. I didn't attend it, but I just like the direction ACRA is going in right now. Seems very mindful about addressing visitor pressure, enhancing the Aspen experience, and preserving small-town character.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bill?
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation. I had this number in my head, but it escaped me, so please remind me. What's the total destination marketing income that the tax is providing to ACRA?
It's 4.532250.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So what report or what metrics should I be using to determine whether that 4.5 million is being is generating a return for Aspen? What's like the best resource? Everything you described sounds wonderful, to be clear. So I think you're doing all the right things, but like, how do I know that 4.5 million is doing what it's ultimately supposed to do for Aspen, which is generate and promote tourism and get people to come here?
Yeah, I think the sales tax report that the finance department puts out shows growth. So that's one way to measure that success. It's been hard to try and measure the less resident sentiment for something, for example, is something that we're trying to improve upon, but it's hard to measure that improvement. So we are trying to research that every couple of years and look at how residents' awareness of the efforts we're doing has improved, or if they're aware of it, if their kind of feelings towards tourism have improved. But there's a lot of different key indicators. I would say, you're making your own city budget off of revenues put together by sales tax. So I think that is one indicator. Occupancy is an indicator, but of course it's not the only indicator because second homeowners are not counted in that, day trip visitors. So we look at wastewater flow data to see how trends are mirroring occupancy to see if all of that is contributing overall to kind of a successful Aspen environment.
That all makes sense, but like, what can I refer to from a quantitative perspective? So like real numbers that I can say, ACRA spent this $4.5 million and unquestionably delivered this to the community that wouldn't otherwise be here. I think the group bookings could be one thing that you're involved with, because those might not be here otherwise, right? But like, you can't really say that for sure the sales tax growth in July of 2025 was because of ACRA's efforts, right? So like, what can and I'm not questioning that you contribute to overall tourism here. I just want to know for sure and be able to show the community that like, we're spending this money responsibly, we're generating a return on this investment, the tax dollars are going to good use. So like, what can we feel good about and know for sure that the data is there to back?
One thing that comes to mind, and I don't have it with me tonight, but we did a website study, and it showed the return on investment for how much more visitors spend who've been to our website versus not. So I can share that with you, which is, yeah.
What about, let me drill in specifically on that group booking piece. Of the groups that ACRA interacts with, what kind of total revenue is brought to the city of Aspen per year on average?
I'll come back to you with that unless Sarah happens to have it off the top of her head, but.
I do not, but we can report back.
Yeah.
Okay, and if there's any other ideas that you as a team can sort of discuss where we can know for sure, hey, without ACRA's efforts, Aspen would be missing out on X dollars of revenue, because like unquestionably we're involved in bringing this business to Aspen, that would be helpful for me to understand.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sam?
I'll blend off that and say thank you for your presentation, everything ACRA does. Like a typical Chamber of Commerce, I mean, I think you're strengthening the local business community and more than anything, I would be thankful for the good stewardship you have for responsible tourism. I feel like that's where it probably reflects back the most on our community as far as people coming here and actually taking the Aspen Pledge and being responsible. So I really appreciate that. And then obviously the events that you guys put on generate a lot of buzz, and I feel like it's very good vibes as a millennial. And then the one question I had, pseudo-ACRA related, is Friday Uphill Club. It doesn't start until 8:45. I was always wondering if there's any opportunity with you guys as sponsors as doing it earlier so people could do it and then get to work afterwards in a more timely fashion, just food for thought if it's ever a possibility.
It's dictated by Mountain Ops,
I
but
figured.
we can provide them that feedback for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And Bill, one thing that just came to mind is we will have economic impact studies from Winter School and Food and Wine, which are also specific to that, so we can share those when they come out.
Very good. Christine, do you have any?
No question, just thanks for your presentation. And from a media perspective, having worked with ACRA in that realm, I think you guys do a great job both locally and nationally in conversations with other partners. So it is that side of it I can speak to, and I can vouch for ACRA on that they're doing a good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, and for all your team being here and working with the city as we work through really challenging proposals like the redevelopment of the Armory and the challenging of the airport closing and things like this. And I personally think back to what great assistance ACRA was during the COVID experience that we all went through. So that has not disappeared. I think it is important to keep in mind the balance that we have as a community, dependent upon a resort economy, and then struggling to maintain its community character and a sense of belonging for all the locals. But you were very quick to respond to the concerns of over-tourism and try to look at ways to smooth that out and make it manageable for our whole community. So I appreciate that. I think if there's anything we can ask for additional help on in the future, it would really be e-bikes and how do we manage e-bikes. And I hear it, whether it's from the Rafta side or from Snowmass Village or from here locally, whether it's on the trails or in the downtown, how we get our bike shops to try to really emphasize the safety protocols with their renters and our own community members. And some people say it's our own youth who are the worst riders of all. I don't know that that's true or not, but, you know, we are running into what I would call new safety concerns that are not necessarily over tourism, but a little over enthusiasm about the power in the throttle. So we're all going to try to manage those more safely in the summer. John, you have additional?
Just on that note, I have seen advertisements on the internet, social media, local bike companies showing video footage of people descending Maroon Creek Road with no helmets on. So I think there's some messaging that we could get out there.
Especially true, we've lost a new community member recently from bicycle accidents.
On a different topic, one more thing. I forgot to mention, congratulations on the new space for ACRA, and thank you for working through that with us. I know it was a little bit of monopoly that we were trying to play to move, or musical chairs might be the better term, to sort of accomplish some goals that we have as a council, and thank you for your patience and tolerance, and I think that this is a great long-term solution for ACRA.
Us too.
So.
Thank you very much.
Yep, very good. All right, well, do you have any further questions for us, or Pete, or anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Really appreciate that. Our next presentation will be from CORE. And we'll start in just a second, but I'm going to take a really quick break in between these things if anyone else needs to, or our TV person in between presentations.
I didn't realize that both ACRA and CORE gave presentations that night.
Great, and we are continuing with our work session with the Community Office of Resource Efficiency. Please.
Thank you. Thanks for having CORE here tonight, and thanks ACRA for going first and sorting through some of the tech issues with us, or for us. I'm Tara Stitzline. I'm the CEO of CORE as of mid-September, and I think you are all probably familiar with CORE, but just to center us here in this conversation, CORE's mission is to urgently reduce carbon emissions, primarily through the work that we do in the built environment and the support that we provide to buildings. And I'm going to start with just an overview of what that building program delivery looks like, talk about some of our successes in 2025 and how we will build on that model and that success as we look forward to 2026. So our building performance hub model provides technical advising and support for high-impact carbon-reducing projects in buildings. We support residential, commercial, and multifamily buildings throughout our territory, including City of Aspen. We incentivize both energy efficiency improvements, so things like insulation and air sealing, and fuel switching projects where folks are switching from gas to clean electricity and heating their buildings. We do this also by providing direct financial support in the form of grants and rebates to these buildings to help facilitate that process. And we also support those buildings with assistance to apply for additional stackable incentives to make sure that they're getting the full benefit of what's available to them, whether it's from the utility or from the state, and helping them make those projects a reality. Just to review our work so far in 2025, we've awarded over $1.6 million worth of incentives throughout our territory. You can see over $900,000 of that has been spent in Pitkin County. And this translates to 158 projects. Over 108 of those are heat pumps, and I include that symbol there because this is going up every day. We've got a lot of community interest and uptake on this work, and this represents a year-over-year growth trend that we've seen since about 2022, both in terms of dollars of incentives awarded and particularly number of heat pumps. We started a few years ago with just a little bit of interest in heat pumps and have really shifted our program model and where our funding goes to support that electrification effort that results in significant carbon reduction and climate benefits. Specific to the City of Aspen, over $590,000 of that has been spent in City of Aspen on 29 projects that supported installation of 14 heat pumps and reduced over 100 metric tons of carbon just this year. And you can see the breakdown of where this goes in terms of residential rebate projects, commercial rebates, and a few large grants from CORE. On the Building IQ program, 5 of those grants that I just displayed overall, 5 of them went to Building IQ participants for a total of $229,000 awarded in 2025. Over $400,000 has been awarded in the form of grants to these buildings since the Building IQ program started in 2021. And so we're starting to see the translation of those relationships and the data that we're gaining from the program translating into action. Another way that we're starting to move that program along in partnership with the city sustainability department, we've identified 2 new opportunities for future improvement projects through these benchmarking conversations. So just to highlight what the relationships and the fact that we're able to kind of understand where that building is at currently as they plan for the future and identify opportunities on the horizon. Talk a little bit about our fundraising work and just our efforts to diversify our funding stream. We are in our 3rd full year of growing our development program essentially from the ground up. We've been awarded a matching grant from Atlantic Aviation this year where they're matching 50% essentially. They're matching for every $2 that's donated to CORE, they're providing $1 up to $300,000. So that kind of helped structure us around a $600,000 goal of philanthropic support that we're aiming to bring in to reach a total of $900,000 with that match grant from Atlantic Aviation. So we're on our way to achieving that with approximately 70% of that fundraising in the door this year so far, and that will represent around 25% of our annual income at the $900,000. Additionally, outside of this philanthropic support, we're continuing to grow our contract relationships with other communities like the town of Basalt, like Eagle County, and grow fee-for-service programs both with municipalities and with individual buildings as we provide support kind of above our standard model of program delivery. So I'll talk now about our 2026 outlook and goals, kind of building on, like I said, the success that we've had in 2025 and what our strategic plan is based around is an increased reduction in emissions over the next 6 years. So we're aiming next year to reduce 20% more greenhouse gas emissions than what we did in 2025. The other quantitative goal as far as program delivery that we're working on is continuing to dedicate a minimum of 40% of our resources to community priority participants. So that program looks like income qualified individuals, local workforce, so teachers, nurses, first responders all qualify for the community priority participant program where they can access double the amount of rebates and free home energy assessments. So we are hitting that target this year. We've got 48% of our projects this year are community priority participants. So continue to deliver that program in 2026. Then additionally, we're seeking to grow our philanthropic support by 10% over this year and strengthen regional partnerships. We brought on a new director of regional strategy this year who is helping bring communities throughout our territory together around opportunities to increase collective impact. And that's looking like core support for going after the local impact accelerator grant right now in partnership with Aspen. And then lastly, just to drill down a little more on what that looks like in 2026 to both reduce 20% more greenhouse gas emissions and balance that with ensuring that we're dedicating those resources to community priority participants. Because I see those two goals as sort of balancing one another, where high impact commercial projects are often reduce significant greenhouse gas emissions, but we want to make sure that we're not focusing all of our resources there and neglecting the rest of the community. So in terms of the high impact commercial projects, we know that we need to continue to drive that number up in 2026 to continue increasing our impact overall. And in order to do that, we need to continue to enhance our staff expertise through professional development of our programs team and strategic hiring. In the last year, we brought on 2 project managers that are very focused on the commercial and complex multifamily building space, that those projects take a lot of time and resources to translate into those GHG reducing opportunities. And both of those project managers have a background in engineering and understanding of kind of the large building construction process that helps them navigate and support those buildings through their retrofit process. So. And then on the residential side, as I mentioned in the kind of overview of the incentive slide, we've got great interest from the community and kind of a steady trajectory of increase in residential projects, particularly heat pump projects over the last several years. So we know that we need to deliver excellent customer service to continue to drive that steady increase for residential projects. And we're looking at several ways to do that. I think some of these barriers that we're seeking to reduce apply kind of across the board to both high impact commercial and multifamily and residential projects, where we're seeking to strengthen our trade partnerships so that we can feel confident making referrals to contractors. We were looking to and always gathering feedback around how to improve our process, make things easier for customers, make sure that we're tracking and reporting information appropriately. And then lastly, that there's other barriers and interests of customers, and so we're interested in how we can help reduce, we're very focused on the upfront cost barrier and providing rebates for installation, but we get a lot of questions about the operational costs and what the impact on their utility bill is going to be if they're to switch to an electric heat pump system. So we're looking at different ways of potentially reducing that through programs and core. And yeah, I think all of these two goals, this is if awarded funding from the city in 2026, we are aiming to increase the number of incentives that go out to the community here. We're also looking to specifically dedicate funds to providing grants to buildings that are part of the Building IQ program to translate more of those projects in 2026. And looking to, replicate or continue to deliver on this community priority participant program that delivers benefits to all sorts of different folks in Aspen. So this is my last slide and the overview of what we're aiming to do in 2026. So happy to take your questions and elaborate on anything you like.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Who would like to go first? John,
I don't have any questions, just comments.
would you like to make a comment then? That'd be fine.
Sure.
Having been our former core board member.
Actually, Sam and I both were, and I was disappointed not to be on the board anymore, but I understand why, and I'm pleased that I'm still on the development committee board, and I promise I'll send out some funding raising emails this week so we can get up to $600K and match Atlantic's grant. Huge fan of CORE and everything CORE does. This is just great news for our community and sets an example for the rest of the state. So thanks, Tara.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Sam?
Welcome, Tara. I guess first I wanted to ask you, beyond financials, what challenges you face at CORE? I know you're new to the role, but when it comes to climate and doing this type of work, there's so many obstacles between technology and just community opposition and then financials from that point of view. And I just wanted to hear your take on the challenges that you're going through that are not just raising money, but the other side of things.
Yeah. New to the role, not new to the organization or the challenges. So I think I can provide some insight there. I think in just looking at these few bullets on how we reduce 20% more greenhouse gas emissions in 2026 than in 2025, we know that there's a balance that we need to strike there in growing the number of high-impact commercial projects, which has necessitated bringing on, like I mentioned, that new additional staff expertise and kind of leveling up our programs where, 10 years ago, there was lower hanging fruit in just being able to look at commercial lighting projects and replace things with LEDs and have significant impact in that way. And I think that was the answer at that point. But in the point that we're at in really needing to drive down on the heating systems and the fuel switching opportunities, we really need to continue to build that staff expertise to be able to support these large projects in delivering. I think the thing that comes with is long timelines. Some of these commercial projects take multiple years to actually come to fruition and translate to greenhouse gas emissions reductions. So that looks like, continuity of our team and of our funding, and that's what we're starting to see. We've translated a couple of projects just in the last few months that have taken anywhere from 18 months to 3 years to deliver, and that's what we want to continue to build. So we know we need again that continuity.
Thank you for that. And through this role, where have you discovered where the technology is just lacking, where you wish you could reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but there's just not a viable alternative at this point? Yeah,
I think that still exists in the large commercial building retrofit space. There's some some buildings where it's possible it's possible that it's the right decision for them to choose a fully electric system, but there's some instances where we recently awarded a grant to a mixed-use commercial building for a dual fuel system that we hope to monitor throughout the winter and understand how much of the load is able to be carried by the heat pumps and how much is going to be powered by gas, and use that as a way to understand. I think each building is unique, and that's why we also need to lean on our engineers to understand what's possible for each of these unique buildings, and also to think outside the box, because there are technological limitations, but in a lot of instances there are ways around them with, additional financial resources to make that happen.
But still plenty of work to keep you busy for now. And-
No shortage of work.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Don't remember turning that off. Apologies. I want to ask similar questions to what I asked of ACRA. How much are you getting from our REMP funds right now, which I think is primarily the source of the funding from the City of Aspen to core, would be my preemptive question.
Yeah, last year our contract was around $1.1 million, and total REMP from both the City of Aspen and Pitkin County represents around 55% of our income in 2025. So City of Aspen is around 30% of that.
Okay, great. And so what kind of quantitative data can I look to demonstrate to myself and the community that this $1.1 million that's coming from our REMP collections is being put to good use?
Yeah, I think that these are the quantitative metrics here on the screen, the dollars awarded within the City of Aspen, the number of projects that translates to, because that translates to $142,000 worth of residential rebates, translates to families and homes behind those projects that are getting that benefit, as well as the carbon reduction benefit. So we know that throughout this territory in Pitkin County and the City of Aspen, I don't know the exact percentage of emissions from buildings, but I know that it's somewhere in the range of 50 to 60%. So in order to achieve climate action goals, we know that we need to continue to reduce emissions from buildings. So I think that all of these metrics, and then at the end of the year, we do a dollar per metric ton of carbon calculation. We don't do it at this point because we've not fully recognized all the carbon savings from projects that aren't complete. But that helps us shape, again, how we prioritize those big commercial projects versus the community projects that might, be lower impact in terms of emissions, but really high value to the family that gets the double rebate.
Great, that's helpful. And how does our average dollar per ton cost compare to planting trees or contributing to some kind of large-scale green energy initiative that we could just give our money to? That may not be in the City of Aspen, but.
Yeah. I don't have numbers off the top of my head. I know that work specifically in buildings, and again, the reason that we're focused on the built environment here is really based on the opportunity and the fact that 60% of the emissions are coming from the built environment. There are certainly things that cost less than decarbonizing buildings, like planting trees. I don't know what, as far as impact, what planting trees does. So I'd be interested to look at and compare work in buildings versus some of those other project types. But again, I think that as far as the city and the priorities of the climate action plan here and what you can do in your backyard in the City of Aspen, buildings are such a significant opportunity that without dedicating resources to these buildings, it's unlikely that we'll reach climate action goals, whether it's 2030 or 2050 or whenever.
Thanks for the answer. I would love to get that data from you, a comparison on that, because I could care less about these climate action goals. I'm interested in the outcomes.
Sure.
And if we're focused on reducing greenhouse gases, as you know a lot better than me, those things are global, they're not local. So if we could have 10 times the impact by planting trees, I think that's a much better and more responsible use of these taxpayer dollars than trying to do something here just to feel good about it. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm probably in the minority, but I'm outcome focused. I'm not focused on feeling good.
Yeah, I can pull together some examples.
We don't need to respond to that comment. I just have other people up here who'd like to get involved with this discussion. And I look at what you've put on the screen as being pretty significant, both in the annual reductions that will carry forward in future years, as well as the reduced costs for our residents who are reducing their utility bills. But I do agree with Bill that any sort of further documentation or metrics that you can produce at the end of the year would be very helpful for us in presenting at mountain communities and other groups with the success we've had.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, you have a comment?
Yeah, just really quick. Could you remind us what percentage of local carbon emissions come from our built environment?
It's between 50 and 60%, depending on.
And that's why electrification is so important, I think. That's why the ski company is building all electric buildings in Boulder and at their new in Mammoth Lakes, California. That's why high-rises in New York City are being built that are all electric, because the cost of fossil fuels is continuing to go up and the cost of renewables is going down.
Yeah.
Thanks for your work.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Christine, do you have any comments or
I
questions?
have a question, and it might be a little bit in the weeds, but you came to present to APSHA, and so I started to walk down the transitioning to heat pump path for my own house, and I promise that this will come back to the council. So I talked to a general contractor, and they suggested that you just used the word term dual fuel, so that you have a backup for the heat pump for whatever reason. We're considering electrification at the council level, and so to help inform that conversation, is that realistic? Because I want to make sure that we're informed with the reality of doing the transitioning to something like that versus what sort of theoretically is presented.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it is a realistic option. It is balanced by financial realities of where technology exists to fully electrify, even in large commercial buildings, and particularly in residential. I think that there are not a lot of cases in residential homes where it does not make sense to fully electrify. So, would encourage you to talk with your core energy advisor about other bids and contractors that might give you a different picture. And for large commercial projects, I do think that like I said, there are often options and technologies that exist to fully electrify. It's just whether or not you have the luxury of taking the long view in terms of return on investment and what it means in terms of operational costs to electrify versus get your heating from gas. And that equation just looks different for every stakeholder and for every building, and requires some energy modeling to kind of project that for the building upgrade.
That's helpful, thanks. I think, Bill, one of your questions about the electrification conversation was just, are we asking too much of people, and if it's realistic? So this is a bigger conversation, we're not going to have it here, but I think what you just said is helpful in moving that forward.
Good.
Very good. I think you've given a good presentation, and watching CORE grow from Energy 2000 out of a Sister Cities Symposium to what we have today is a mark of great success, and wish you well leading this organization forward.
Thank you very much. Very happy to build on the long history of success in climate action at CORE. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I think we now move on to the rest of the budget hearing. I appreciate staff's patience with us as we're moving forward through the agenda tonight.
Oh, are you okay?
She's just so anxious.
Yes,
These are very big shoes.
they are.
So,
They're cute though.
should we come up now?
Sure, join
Like,
me.
we're already here.
Got a few slides before you, but
Okay. So the first one on our packet was APSHA.
I'm going to present
Okay.
for APSHA. And Matthew's here for back.
I saw him in the background, that's what I
Yeah.
was wondering. What-
There he is.
Okay, good to see you there.
You're good. You're good.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Matt Grau, Budget Manager for the City of Aspen. And we're here for work session number 4 tonight of our budget work sessions. We will talk about APSHA. And when I originally kind of laid out the outline, I thought it may be more robust, but I'll just go ahead and say we ended up including their capital on capital night and their supplemental on supplemental night. So it's not quite as robust as I initially envisioned for APSHA. So that's why I'm going to present
Okay.
on their behalf. And then we have all of your follow-up items and kind of budget conclusions tonight. And so with that, jump right into APSHA's budget. I grabbed this slide off of our digital budget book, so if you've explored any of that, you may have seen this. But really, the story for APSHA for 2026 is kind of status quo from an operating budget standpoint. Their capital is at the property level, not at their kind of 620 fund housing administration level this year. No new FTEs. They added FTEs the last 2 years. So this year, really, their focus is on improving customer service experience for their residents and applicants, I think. And I just wanted to pull up their LRP, remind everyone that APSHA is supported by operating subsidy, 50% from the City of Aspen, 50% from Pitkin County. That's the second line there under intergovernmental revenues that you can see. It's going up a little bit because their one supplemental that we discussed is to make the essential housing repair program ongoing, and we also took that up from $400,000 one time in '25 to $500,000 ongoing into their budget. So that's my APSHA piece. So if you have any specific questions, I can give it a shot, or we might grab Matthew to bring them up. But
Okay. Any questions on the board? We're comfortable with this?
I have none.
Okay,
all right.
thank you.
And that's just from a procedural standpoint, their budget is approved by a separate resolution from the City of Aspen budget, so we'll be bringing that in November.
Okay, thank you very much.
One final note, we discussed it early work sessions, ACI and Truscott 2, our tax credit properties. Pete and Tyler Sexton, Acting Finance Director, will continue conversations with our tax credit experts and our financial partners for those 2 housing funds. We're looking to manage properties within the existing tax credit structures, explore shared capital expenses, and improve asset performance. So those conversations are ongoing.
Thank you. And I understand there's also some attempt to make the Aspen Country Inn units, which have a senior or low-income priority, more available, or trying to recruit people who may want to take advantage of the downsizing program.
Yes, I know
for those
APSHA's
units.
been very active in trying to, we'll let Matthew
Okay.
speak to that specifically.
Silver-tongued devil.
Good evening, everyone. Matthew Gillen, Executive Director. We've had a number of efforts, both at the policy level and the advertising level, on particularly in Aspen Country Inn. The APSHA board reduced the APSHA work requirement from 1,500 hours to 1,000 hours. Earlier than that, we had also eliminated the requirement that any APSHA resident has to be a legal permanent resident or American citizen, so we got out of the immigration game. And this summer, we've been working very hard on publicizing throughout the valley the availability of the units, particularly at Aspen Country Inn, including a Spanish radio ad, which is going throughout October, and we've extended it to November, flyers, ads, social media. And we've seen some success. The number of open units has gone from 9 to 7, which doesn't sound great, but of those 7, 5 we have very serious applicants in, and the nature of the CHAFA requirement for applications is you accept the person and then you qualify them. So it's the other way around from the APSHA setup. So we have to offer the unit to the person based on the initial screening, and then we do the detailed investigation of how they are. So we're in much better shape than we were a while ago, and we're keeping up our efforts to advertise and publicize those units.
Thank you very much for that.
Question. If you're not using the criteria that they need to be a legal permanent resident, are you not risking them being targeted for like deportation if now it's known that non-legal permanent residents are living at this location?
I think the important thing, and this was actually nearly 2 years ago when the APSHA board removed that. I think the idea was we were getting out of the immigration business, and we are now fully harmonized with a few Colorado state laws which also forbid that. So we're fully in harmony. We've been talking to our lawyer 2 years ago, so we're very comfortable with the position we're in. But Sam, you do have an interesting point. We have seen a little bit of pressure from the immigration fears. For example, when there is a single parent, which are one of our target demographics for Aspen Country Inn, we have traditionally, and per the regulations, we do have to ask for a custody order for that for the other parent or a divorce decree, and we have seen some people declining to get that formal documentation to allow them to come into ACI. So staff is looking at the regulations, and we may be discussing with the board some amendment or instructions to not worry about that so formally, because right now we do ask for a formal divorce decree or custody agreement.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to say, from a human level, you've got to be very careful if you're advertising for, it could be an advertisement for ICE if you're not careful.
Yeah, we don't mention
Those
mention that in the ad, as opposed to previously where we would have had to say LPRs or American citizens only. So now we just, it's not an issue.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you coming up to the table, and part of what I've been thinking, and I know I'm a little removed from the Housing Board and its activities now, so it might not be current, but that for the downsizing program and the hope that people will give up a larger unit for a smaller unit, I've always felt that one of the hindrances I know I would feel as a homeowner is the security of renting. And can you make like if we really get someone who's downsizing to move into the country Inn, could we offer them an automatic lease renewal unless they, violate over some certain standards or something? So that, that's the hardest thing I think for people to give up is the security of home ownership to move into a rental situation, and just trying to think about how it might work with some more of our senior community.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mayor Richards, particularly since Colorado tenancy law has changed in the past couple of years, and the authority of the landlord to arbitrarily not renew a lease has been removed. So publicizing that fact that there are much more tenancy protections, that'd probably be a good idea.
Or even if we need to go a step further with that, just to be that enticement to make it feel safe to move residences. But it's just for your consideration and your board's consideration. Any other questions or comments from the board? No. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
Okay, here we go. Next up.
All right.
All right. So I am Haley Odell, Deputy City Engineer, and I'm here with
Trisha Aragon, City Engineer, and
Lynn Rumbaugh, Director of Transportation.
And Tyler Christoff, Deputy City Manager.
Thank you.
So we're here to talk a little bit about a supplemental that you guys can expect to see coming in 2026. As you all recall, at the August 18th council work session, staff presented on and council discussed traffic and congestion in the West End neighborhood. The conclusion of that work session, 15 projects were identified to address pedestrian and bicycle safety and to investigate potential solutions to address traffic through the neighborhood. Since then, staff has worked to price out the cost estimates for these 15 projects. Given the timing of that August work session, we were not able to incorporate this into the 2026 budget discussions, so these costs are not currently covered in a 2026 project. There's currently no funding, and they would require supplemental requests. We wanted to present on these now and give you an idea of the additional budget asks that will be presented to council. So the 15 projects have been broken into 3 categories. The first is pedestrian and bicycle improvements. So you can here you can see the 5 projects that would improve the pedestrian experience in the West End, along with their associated costs. Next, we have the second category, which addresses...
do you want to, so these costs are design or analysis only. The implementation would be additional costs.
So the next category, we have the 8 projects that would address West End traffic flow improvements. You can see here their associated costs. And then lastly, we have 2 projects that addresses traffic flow and pedestrian improvements on the Highway 82 corridor. Go to the next slide. Over here we have a summary of the 3 project categories and a final cost of just over $500,000. As Tricia said, these estimates are for design and analysis only. There'd be additional costs for construction and implementation. For this work, 2 contracts would be sought to complete the work, one with Jacobs Engineering and a second with Alta Engineering. The projects would be sole sourced to Jacobs to leverage institutional knowledge and because of the intricacies of these projects in connection to the entrance to Aspen. An as-needed contract would be utilized with Alta Engineering for the remainder of the projects. So as I said, the timing of the work session limited our ability to include these items in the budget discussion. Council will likely review these requests during a supplemental or consent agenda process. Some infrastructure-related projects could be completed next summer. It's anticipated that these longer analysis projects could take a full year or 2 years to complete. So we would estimate about 2 years to complete all 15 projects. At this time, staff intends to work toward completion of all the projects, and these costs give you a general idea of the additional 2026 supplemental requests.
Thank you. A couple of questions, and I think you may have just kind of addressed the last one for me on timing. As these are all being financed as a package, as a supplemental, but they're distinct little projects under a given heading. Is it possible some could move forward more quickly, or is it going to be wait for the whole package to be analyzed before anything moves forward?
We could definitely pick and choose and move certain aspects forward. I would ask council for direction on prioritizing and what you'd like to see kind of move forward.
Yeah, and that's not something to happen here tonight. I just see, so many pieces that some may be more complex and take longer and more expensive, and some may be easier and simpler to implement. So I'd hate to just see it as it's all or nothing package.
Yep, I think it would be piece by piece.
Piece by piece.
Time frame as quickly as each piece could be completed.
And as the appropriate work is done. I like that. I appreciate that. The other is just from my reading through it, and I know others may have ideas or additional items to throw through, but in terms of having Jacobs look at the impact of some work, I have asked the question, what if you had a no left turn from Power Plant Road to Highway 82? That people leaving town by Power Plant Road would need to be going McLean Flats, that if they were, so I think that might eliminate some amount of traffic using Power Plant Road that really just want to go to the Airport Business Center or go to Burlingame or go up Castle Maroon. So I don't know if that's something that we need to add to this list to be looked at, or we could do it at a future date or something like that?
That project in particular, so that's where we get, we have to be very intentional and careful
Yes.
about what projects go forward and which do not, as far as the reevaluation process. So the reevaluation for the ETA, there are some of these aspects, like the one you just mentioned, is being included as part of the reevaluation. So we have to be
Okay,
careful about what we do in this project versus the reevaluation.
I can appreciate that, and I'm glad you were able to tell me that's what's going on with any sort of consideration or study of that. You know, and we talked about this at the Elected Officials Transportation Commission meeting last week in Pitkin County, that when we have a retreat on transportation with the EOTC, a big part of it is how do we bring these different elements together between the Transportation for the 21st Century group that's studying this, and city staff which are looking at different aspects, and of course CDOT, Federal Highway Administration, and other bodies who are concerned with the outcomes of this. RAFTA, for one, is a major user. And to start to pull these threads back together again so that it's not all just different projects and different efforts. But I appreciate the work on this, and I'll see if my colleagues have other comments and questions. Bill first?
Sure. Thanks, Haley and Trish. I'm supportive of all the pedestrian improvements. I've got a couple of comments on categories 2 and 3, and maybe we can bring those slides back up if you wouldn't mind. Thanks. I wanted to sort of express my thoughts and see where everyone else stands on a couple of items in here. In general, I'm supportive of improving traffic issues in the West End, but I'm not sure I can get behind these ideas of congestion pricing and cordoning, if I'm interpreting what cordoning is correctly. I just don't think that whatever these studies find, we're going to end up doing them, so they seem like not great uses of money to me. Everything else I really like here, and would be supportive of, but those two, number 6 and number 7, I'm sort of struggling with, and wanted to check in with everyone else on those.
Yeah. Just a small clarification, because I asked this last week at the Transportation Coalition meeting. Congestion pricing and cordoning are essentially the same thing. It's charging a fee to go through that area. It's not like barriers that block it, you know, and say no one can go in no matter what ever. So I personally, I mean, that's what Peers and Fears confirm, that they're kind of the same thing. And I know that cordoning has a particularly kind of negative connotation to the terminology. So I don't understand what the difference of those two ones are myself. I'll leave it at that. And I would just say I'm interested in investigating what we can do in these neighborhoods and the areas, and I do want to see how it all comes together with other measures. I mean, none of these are standalones that are going to make much difference at all. But I think congestion as a problem is going to be unending. It's going to continue to worsen, and it's something we have to take some real serious steps on at some point in the future. So I'd like to at least have the investigation and have some understanding of whether it would work well or not. John?
My only comment would be investigating congestion pricing for our whole community, not just the West End.
Yeah, I think that's kind of boiling in the background with the 21st century, but I'm not sure that we're there to recommend that yet and how it will work. I mean, it's a very complex item because you want to get to where, how do you not impact your commuters who don't really have other alternatives to use, or how do you incentivize and kind of roll a program like that that's truly beneficial, to be able to tell someone, yes, there's a cost here now, but that's why there's twice as much bus service. Or yes, there's a cost here now, but your trip into Aspen is 25 minutes shorter than it used to be. And I don't know that we have, I think that's a much bigger study than perhaps these dollars would get us to. But it's getting closer to that. Christy?
Bill, I had a similar reaction on 6 and 7 with those two. I think especially given the Transportation Coalition's work, I would hate to jump the gun and get negative community feedback on congestion pricing and hinder anything that happens at a broader community level. So I'm with you on that.
And for me, I 2.5 years on this role, I understand the pain of bureaucracy sometimes. So the two things that I think of when I look at this is, one, can we get staff recommendation and staff buy-in? Because the last thing I really want to do is ask you to do all these things when you don't believe it and you think you're just like doing it for us. Because it's a lot of money to spend on just studies and analysis, which I think this community is sick of, in a way, of just study and analysis. And that brings me to number 2, which is some of this I would just want logic to prevail. Like, I know there's a list of community members in a specific alleyway that want it to be one way. Do you really need to spend almost $24,000 to know if that's a good idea or not? Like, maybe it's a rhetorical question, maybe it's not, but it's one of those painful things where it should be as simple as using your degrees and logic and reason to say, yeah, that's not going to be an issue, that's going to be okay. I don't know why everything needs to cost tens of thousands of dollars for something that feels a lot simpler. And then some of the stuff is more complex, and I get that. The congestion pricing is very complicated, but I would tend to agree with others and John that, like, I'm not sure if it's a West End specific thing. I was talking to Christine earlier about New York City and like how I don't know, it's not like apples to apples. I don't know how it would work here. It's really more of a curiosity. It sounds like the 21st Century Coalition is studying it as well, so definitely don't want to jump the gun on that. But more than anything, and this is not how I operate, I can just see a very terrible newspaper headline of City Council approves $500,000 in studies on traffic and congestion, and they're the ones we've studied before. They're going nowhere. Staff doesn't buy in. So I know these are preliminary, and I know these are things you brought to us because we asked for them, but I do think there's a better process of getting to you being staff buying into it and just logic and reason prevailing, and then understanding what are like larger things like congestion that we'll eventually get to, but are a much larger conversation. So hopefully that resonates as far as.
Do you
Actually, I
mind
wanna
talking specifically on 6 and 7, Sam, and whether you think those should be included in this or not?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure what should be included in this because it's painful for me to say we're going to spend $500,000 on studies, and I don't know if staff's bought into it or not, and I don't know what we're jumping the gun on, and I don't know if there's easier ways to go about things. As far as the one I latch onto is one-way alley signage being like, that one alleyway, can we just put signage there and make it one way?
Yeah, can we let staff respond to your comment question before moving on to another one? About the cost on the one-way alley signage?
Okay, the one-way alley signage, it's, that particular alley, yes, we went ahead and did a one-way sign on it.
Oh, you did?
This is about the West End in general. Like, do we want to look at
More of the other
a
alleys?
holistic approach at the West End? Is there other opportunities for one-way, like in the West End? That's what that one's about.
I mean, I didn't know that you did it in the alley that was, and you did that without a study. That's why I'm just like, that's incredible. Problem solving at its finest. I don't know if there's not really complaints about one-way alleys and other sections, I don't know why we need to necessarily spend $24,000 to study it. And I really want to say, not related, but everything interconnected when you come to the city of Aspen is people are like, you just raised parking prices and you're going to spend $500,000 on studies in the West End. And it's just one of those, it's perception is reality, bad PR. These things should be bought into by staff and not just be like spending money just to say we did something.
Okay, are you saying that staff is not bought in on these? And
I don't know
you've
if they
had
are.
some-
Yeah, I don't know if they are.
Okay, that's what I was kind of wondering. Because you're making it sound like there's something that it's inappropriate. I mean, we all sat in the same work session when all these types of things were discussed and told staff to go out and, yes, these are the ones, they kept notes on which ones had council majority to try to investigate further. They didn't come up on this list on any one person's say-so or anything like that. So I think what we need to do is think about, are we willing to just say, okay, you know, I got a letter from Bill Sterling the other day that said, hey, just officially designate the West End as Highway 82 East and just blow it all through there from now on. And I don't know all the traffic as an official formal route through Cemetery Lane, up McLean Flats, that's what we need to do immediately. And I don't believe that. I think that our congestion problems are not just in the West End. They're getting the result of us failing to deal with congestion. But it's as congested in the downtown core or to try to go to City Market for parking or anywhere else in our town. And the congestion problems are getting to a point where it's worse in Basalt and it's worse in Glenwood Springs than it is here. We're going to be losing more and more of our workforce who just is too tired of it, too tired of dealing with it. And this neighborhood has gone from, oh, it's a little 5–10% of the traffic, no big deal, to fully a third of the traffic coming into Aspen. And I think it would be irresponsible for this council to say, it's okay, it's $500,000. We have to study a few of these things before we just go out and implement, so we're not going to do anything. And
Not saying that either.
I know you're not saying that, but you've made a pretty impassioned speech about $500,000 to do the technical studies and the engineering studies to actually do things. Yes, you can plan a one-way sign up for an alley pretty easily for a single alley, but not the crossroads of alleys that go up and down the downtown. How do people access their driveways, their houses, which have already been closed off on one way? I wish it was simple. None of these things are simple, but I think staff has very responsibly brought back, this is what it costs to take a look at the things you guys told us to look at in a work session in August.
Well, if I respond, I just want to, let me pick one again. Weight restrictions on Power Plant Road. If I could ask staff, like, is that something that is worth studying? Is that something that it might actually go somewhere? Or is that something just because someone asked about it one time?
No, I think it's worth looking into some more. Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I've made an impassioned speech, but really I just wanted to know that staff was bought into some of these items and not just doing it for the sake.
Can I ask that we check in with John on what he thinks on 6 and 7?
Well, I did already comment that it, congestion pricing in the West End doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Is your mic on, John?
Congestion pricing just in the West End didn't make a lot of sense to me. If we're going to look at congestion pricing, we should be looking at the whole community. That tied in with the feasibility of cordoning off the West End. As Rachel pointed out, 34% of our traffic is entering and exiting through the West End. If we turn that off, the rest of the city is going to suffer pretty dramatically. So I agree with what Rachel said. We asked staff to look into this, and this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
So does that mean you support spending the $144,000 on 6 and 7, or pulling that out and doing everything else?
Again, I think if staff has asked for it and we've asked them to do this, I do think we should go through with it. The West End is, suffering's a strong word, but they are dealing with traffic on a daily basis that, again, 34% of the traffic, I don't think anybody's happy with that.
Okay. Sam, are you?
Bill, if I could continue to conduct the meeting. Sure. Thank you.
I'm just trying to
Yeah,
bring this to an end.
I know, we're all trying to hurry it a little bit. What I was going to say is that I think there was some interest in seeing if there should be congestion pricing in the West End area as a test and experiment to see whether it would work for the entire community and move forward. So that's probably part of why it's there, was that it's saying that this is a small, discrete area rather than right off the bat. But I will say that this was going to come to us as a supplemental. It was not included in the budget as it exists so far. And we would have a chance to discuss all this again when we approve that supplemental. But in order to move us forward and taking your comments and Christine's comments that we don't want to get out ahead of other work, and we could add it in at a future date if it seems that work becomes timely, I would support removing items 6 and 7 from this work plan and moving forward with the rest now. And we can re-add it back in when it becomes more timely and it's more fully supported.
I would support that as well.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
And then
you.
I had one thing on the next slide. Super supportive of both of these. Number 2 came from me. Rachel, I think, really spurred number 1. I wanted to ask you, Haley and Trish, are there any other ideas that you have sort of in your head that you, or in your heart, that you believe will help with traffic flow improvements that we could sort of push ahead with some additional funding sooner rather than later?
So back to the Highway 82 efficiency analysis, although that is, again, needs to be intentional in regards to the reevaluation, there might, in talking with Jacobs, there might be something else that they could do without interfering with that process. That would, I need more discussion with them on that and what their thoughts were, but maybe there's something there beyond what we have for the Truscott and Cemetery lane light.
I guess I would say, like, if and when you discover some ideas that you think work, and I'm less concerned about the conflict with the reevaluation than I am about getting something done yesterday to improve traffic flow on 82. If and when you come up with an idea and you need funding for it, please come back to us sooner rather than later. This is of critical importance to me.
Yeah, and I think for all of us, Bill, I did want to say, I probably confused you with Michael Miracle of the ski company about who kept asking about the signalized crossing at 8th Street.
He's my neighbor, so
He's
I'm
your
sure
neighbor.
we share the
And
same
so
ideas.
I've told him this information twice, and he's like, you're confusing me with someone else. And so, but, and I think we can investigate this further, but what I was told CDOT has said is that they cannot make that a on-demand only, a signalized cross-section unless we put a traffic light there. That they don't want people running to catch their bus without a safe crossing. And so it's like, because that was an obvious point. Why are we stopping all the traffic for one person, then another person, then another person? And so we'll find out, but apparently CDOT said unless there's a stoplight, you can't have a signalized control crossing that way. That
I'm not
makes them
totally
wait.
opposed to the idea of the stoplight. I don't know what the different versions or formats they come in are, but yes,
Maybe.
we will find out.
We will find out. So, okay, there we go, and
As a point of clarification, as far as process, we weren't going to wait until the supplemental to come forward with those contracts. So in the essence of time, we were going to go ahead and proceed with those contracts with Jacobs and Alta, and then ask for and as part of that,
Get
we'll
the
say
money
we'll
later.
come back, and ask for that supplemental. So we weren't going to do it the other way.
okay. Christine, you had something?
To Sam's point, what you just said kind of negates this, but it would be helpful to have some sort of like rubric of feasibility and impact and what kind of decisions we should be weighting here, because this is a bucket of ideas. It's a really big bucket, and I am with you on wanting to narrow in a little bit instead of just throwing a bunch of money at a bunch of studies and potentially $5 to $10 million later implementing some of this.
Okay, is that
Thank you.
clear enough to go forward?
I think staff can come up with its recommendations for impact and put that alongside some of these projects and give you some detail.
Okay. Thank you. So, here we go. What's next?
As far as the TDM element of the congestion conversations you're having, I can just give you a few really quick updates. As you all know, RAFTA's fare-free pilot is underway. Their evaluation process is also kicking off. There will be onboard surveys the week of November 11th, and we expect to have some evaluation materials back to you around the holidays, so we can consider if that's something that we want to continue into 2026 in any way. You will see the cost of this initial pilot as a spring supplemental, just based on the timing of how everything came together. Additionally, those of you at the RAFTA board have possibly heard some requests for a pilot of a service that travels between the Brush Creek lot and Castle Creek Road and Maroon Creek Road. I think that originally came from Aspen School District. Just letting you know, as another item that could come up in 2026, we are evaluating grant opportunities and partnerships for a pilot of that type of service. We are also evaluating a grant opportunity with Northwest COG to launch and test a carpool app that would help to form and verify carpool groups. So just a couple quick updates on some of the TDM projects we're working on, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I was wondering whether we're also looking at what additional service to and from the intercept lot we could contract with RAFTA specific to the downtown as opposed to the Castle Maroon routes.
Ruby Park. Sure, we've done a service like that, as you probably recall, several times in the past. It's been a while since we've added that type of service, mostly because BRT took over that element of additional frequency, but we can always request from RAFTA some type of additional frequency from Brush Creek to Ruby Park. When we've done that in the past, it's usually been peak summer, usually in the, again, peak morning, peak afternoon commute times. So if that's something you'd like us to come back with, we can do that as well.
Well, it's just, you know, with things like increasing the paid parking rates and the desire to control congestion and increase the utilization of the Brush Creek intercept lot, and get Highway 82 moving a little better, that question becomes, is there enough frequency that, or, you know, people not wanting to be in standing room only or things like that. And so, again, I don't know if we can afford it or what. I think in 2026, it would be good for us to look kind of through the course of the year, whether it's month by month or every few months or something, into the budgets of individual departments at a deeper level for the kind of 5-10-year projections out, because that's where we know we're going to have cost concerns with replacement of buses and things like that. Sure.
And
Please.
Ms. Mayor, if I may, I think staff keenly understands council's policy direction around congestion and TDM, and we are pushing the transportation fund as hard as we think is reasonable. And so to your comments, I think that's why we're hesitant to recommend additional services, because if you project that out, it sinks the fund fairly quickly. So I think we need to be mindful of that and just balance those as we move forward. So we'll keep trying to provide that information as you guys have these decisions.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions on this slide? Okay.
All right, so just to wrap up, either contracts brought forward and then included in the spring as a previously approved council item or potentially as a new item. And then related to that, during the Capitol night, we discussed the 2027 capital project placeholder for Highway 82 efficiencies. Staff discussed it internally with city manager. We've decided to leave that in our 5-year forecast. Again, it's not being approved during the 26 budget discussions, but more as a continued placeholder for any actions from these studies that staff said, you know, may take 12, 24, 36 months to come to fruition. So that is still built into the AMP fund at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I want to offer our other staff members who are here, we have some sandwiches up here. Can we take those and put them on that back table over there somehow? And just please have some. We haven't meant for this meeting to go so long. But if anyone's,
I will be efficient.
okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, and continuing on some council discussion items.
Okay.
Arts and culture grants was an item Mayor Richards asked to include, kind of based on the chart, just calling out the numbers. Prior to the vote to expand use of the Arts and Culture Fund, the arts grant budget was roughly $400,000 annually. Since the expanded use was approved, it's grown exponentially. 2025 is about 1.2 million, and then our 2026 budget line for that is growing at our 2.5 goods and service inflationary rate, so it's $1.28 million. Related to that, I know very little about it, but there's some discussions about potential capital arts grants being under consideration. So,
Okay.
any specific questions, or is this kind of sharing for the public potentially?
Well, this is sharing for a council conversation. We all were here for the night of swearing in, and we heard the grants being allocated last time. And there was certainly some concern with a few of kind of our longer-standing legacy organizations that they hadn't received as much as they had in years past, or were concerned. And then since then, we've seen the federal government kind of kill NPR and a few of these other things. So I had just wanted to ask our council as a whole, did we feel we were putting enough in the Arts and Culture Fund for both the traditional arts organizations and the demand that we're starting to see? And this is something that it has gone up significantly since we've been able to have the Wheeler-Rutt question changed, or no longer taking it from the box office revenues and no longer taking it from the general fund. And I understand that there's been a shift in the policy to the arts grants working groups related to keeping more of the money in the Upper Valley and the Upper Aspen area as opposed to spread throughout. And so this is our opportunity to discuss whether the grants fund for arts and culture are sufficient, and whether we would like to increase that before the citizen volunteers start their work, dividing up the pie. That's the real question, is to do it now as opposed to after their work. It's not an appropriate time really to say, oh, well, we're going to give more to this group or more to that group. But I do think we all know there has been increased pressure on some of our government-funded or organizations that have received traditional federal funding. So that's the question for everyone. Sam?
Perfect. John, I wanted to ask you, as manager of this, do you think this would be a good use of our funds, and are there other people clamoring after this specific money pot?
Yes.
John Barker, Strategy and Innovation Director. So it's a really good question, right? And something that we wrestle with all the time as grants administrators, because there will always be demand for however much money that you have. I think there's a little bit of context I'd like to share with council to help you with this conversation. So the first is which we've implemented a fair amount of policy changes at your direction for this cycle that will also help with some of this. So the first is we have reduced the maximum allowable grant award for organizations not based in Aspen from $100,000 in this grant division to $75,000. So that's going to reduce a little bit of the demand. We've also worked with some of our partners in more stressed grant divisions who may have a better home here in arts and culture about how they can submit applications that make more sense for the Arts and Culture Fund to try and reduce the burden onto the community nonprofit division. So we, between those two things, as well, I want to share a little bit about how grant awards are calculated. So there's there's more to it than this, but essentially how we come with our recommendations for council to approve each year is we have our community grant reviewers, and they assess each application on various criteria. And the first thing we do as staff is we take those assessments and put them into a formula that creates essentially what a merit-based award. So if we had unlimited money, how much do our community reviewers think we should fund each application? And then for most grants, we have to take that sort of merit-based award and then cut it further to meet our budgets. Mm-hmm. For arts and culture last year, our total grant request amount was about 1.4 million. Our total budget was about 1.1 million, and our merit-based award was also about 1.1 million. So last year, and that's not the same as this year, right? But last year, the amount that our community reviewers thought we should grant out based on the quality of the applications was almost directly in alignment with our budget.
Okay, let me ask, the $75,000 cap now on out the air. If you looked at last year's granting and kind of clawed it back, how much new breathing room does that create in the Upper Valley? Is it 75,000?
About 75,000.
From three different groups coming back down to reallocate into the Upper Valley, Aspen-based nonprofits. Okay, thank you for that.
Mayor, can I add something else? So I just want to stress to that bottom bullet that we are still in the process of looking at a capital arts grant, which the council has directed us to do. That hasn't been factored into the current financial plan, right? And so there could be some significant impacts depending on how often and how much those grants would be. Matt does have one additional slide right after this, which has the current LRP, right?
Yeah, we're kind of
So kind of hard to see because the numbers are small, but second to bottom line, or excuse me, third from the bottom line, starts showing that percentage of targeted reserve. As you recall, the Arts and Culture Fund has a 100% reserve requirement based on our financial policies. That's what we agreed to. And so we're going from 384% in 2026 down to 160%. That's a more than 50% drop over the course of the 5 years. That's due to some capital projects out in 29 and 30. Again, that'll start pulling some of the fund balance down. And that's, again, before we do anything with a capital program, a capital arts grant program. So I just want the context to be there for you as you're looking ahead.
What's that, 25 million in 27?
Armory.
Yep, that's the borrowing to do the Armory project.
Oh, got it.
Yep, there is a payback period right now that we've factored over 20 years with interest.
Got it.
Yeah, again, we do not have to make any changes. This is the opportunity if we are.
Well, can I ask, Pete, do you recommend any changes? Like, is there room for a slight uptick in this, or is it, based on what you just said, is it irresponsible to do that?
I think I don't have an answer for how large the arts capital grant program is going to be that council wants to move forward with, so that's a little hard to give you a definitive answer. I would say if you're looking on the margins and looking for just a slight increase in the program, $100,000 or something a year, that probably is manageable. That it needs to be balanced, again, with John saying basically they funded essentially what they thought was appropriate for every arts grant that came in last year, dollar for dollar, essentially.
Hard to move up from that then, honestly.
No, I can understand that. I just was a little disappointed personally. The things like the Native American group was so underfunded, and a couple of the others, particularly because I'm so old and I have so much history here of when KJAC's radio station was funded at a different level than they are now. And then, of course, we're seeing this major cutback from the federal level at the same time. And so it's an awkward situation. I don't want to say, here, have another $100,000, and then see it all go to some already really well-funded arts groups at the top, as opposed to saying, I'd like to take a little more care of the arts groups closer to the bottom of what they received last year. So, but, you know, that's just, was my impression. Others weighing in, we can move on this pretty quickly if we don't want to do anything.
I'm good with status quo.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine staying too. I think on the flip side of that, becoming, for groups to become too dependent on the money that we provide for them also has its own downsides. And so
Yes.
providing more isn't necessarily sustainable either.
That is part of our policy is organizations should not be dependent on City of Aspen funding for their sustainability.
Great.
Okay. Well, we've had the conversation, and that's what we need to do during budget season. So thank you for prepping for this and bringing back all the facts, and we'll move on.
Thanks, John. Up next, financial aid programs. At the mayor's request, I pulled the federal poverty level table from
Feds.
thank you, HHS. I was trying to remember which specific department I pulled it from
Yeah.
healthandhumanservices.gov. So that's just kind of as a point of reference for 2025 numbers.
Thank you for that. I want to print a copy that we can always have in the room, because when we talk about childcare and housing categories, everything else, it always comes back to this, and it's good to know those numbers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And just to highlight a few City of Aspen and then Pitkin County and state programs, specifically the mayor asked for a little more information about the Recreation and Red Brick Center for the Arts scholarship programs and financial aid that they offer. So I'm not going to read all the numbers that are on the slide, but I'll just highlight 2025 year to date, 39 youth scholarships and 14 senior scholarships from Rec. And then 9 students and over $4,000 awarded for summer camp programs at Red Brick. So,
Yeah, and thank you for this. I did not ask during our previous work sessions, and I just think it's important whenever we're looking at the rates for the summer camp or the recreation programs that we bear in mind that some people are going to need a little financial aid. And if this fund is insufficient for demand at any level, I would encourage the Parks Department to bring it back to us, and we could consider a supplemental. But I don't want to see any of our community's youth turned away from swim lessons or T-ball or summer camp when their family needs it based on ability to pay.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I don't know that there's anything else other than this was information for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then highlighting Kids First, again, there's multiple levers within their calculation for financial aid under the expanded use that was approved and the supplemental that's included in 2026. I'll just point out that they give some level of aid, potentially up to 750% of that federal poverty level table. Again, dependent on number of children in care, number of days in care, cost of program, et cetera. So all those different levers kind of spit out the potential financial aid number. And then one that was pointed out last week when we were discussing utility rates, the LEAP program, Low Income Energy Assistance Program, is qualified through Pitkin County. Assistance for both heating expense and water bills, and that goes up to almost 400% of federal poverty level. They also have the Low Income Property Tax Relief Program through the county, and that goes up to about 500% of federal poverty level. So programs that are out there.
We also have our own property tax support.
Oh, thank you, Pete. And then some financial call-outs based on our previous 3 meetings. A question that the mayor asked, and I had it in my back pocket on the first night, but we never ended up discussing it. Just a reminder to everyone, the 0.45% sales tax that is currently allocated and dedicated to affordable housing and childcare as approved by voters. The current split on that goes 75% to childcare, to our Kids First Fund, and 25% to the 150 Housing Development Fund. Mayor Richards asked, what would it look like if we shifted an additional 5%? So based on the 2026 projection of $6.3 million coming into that dedicated tax, it'd be about $300,000 if we change to an 80-20 split. I will point out, based on our current financial projections, Kids First can fully absorb within their projected 75% that $600,000 supplemental. So they would not require a change in percentage split to be able to fund that.
Okay, and, you know, again, this is the type of thing we can look at again in 2026 as we see what happens with the child care tax that's on the ballot. My interest was more about if we put more over in child care, what does it do to our housing fund projections and ability to find those? But I think at this point in time, we really should wait and see whatever happens with the child care funding tax program, and then in 26, kind of take a look at this split and see if it's appropriate. Does others agree or, okay? But it's just something I think it's important. We may be at a point in time in the future, we want childcare to be buying some of its own housing permanently there, and that might be at the source for that. So, but thank you for that work, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Another question the mayor asked on night one was a little deeper detail on our total tax number. Just a reminder, taxes are about 50% of our total gross revenue, and there's just the blowout of the specific taxes. I will turn my notes. Sales tax makes up about 44%, so that's our largest piece. The combined dedicated use taxes that we have, and then our share of the county sales tax. The RET makes up about 24%, and lodging and STR 12%. Property taxes, the city's share of the total property tax is a smaller sliver, and that's about 11% of our total taxes.
Thank you.
And then I just gave the 3-year table. We shared that on night one, but with the tax kind of detail blown out in there. One line I will point out, the other tax number, it's 41800. It looks like it's going up a lot, but that was based on a recommendation from our external auditors. Our own City of Aspen water and electric utilities pay a franchise fee to the city, just like Holy Cross does. And it used to be in our transfers because it's net zero impact to the city. And they recommended that we show it as revenue coming in and an expense going out of those utility funds. So that's more of an accounting touch there. And then I went ahead and showed the expenditure side on the 3-year trend as well. And that expense is in the utility line for that franchise fee. Any high-level questions on?
Well, I was just going to say, I think if we'd taken out another couple of years, the number would have come back down because this is the big expenditure on the housing, and other things are budgeted in 2026 if those bond proceeds go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So 5700 property is our capital program. So kind of circling back to our night one discussions, seeing the $171 million for 2026 really does stand out there.
Yeah, that's a big number. You guys just stop me if there's any questions. And,
Sure.
But
Otherwise,
let's keep going.
Okay. And then Bill kind of expanded on expenditures on night one and asked a little bit more about operating expenses. So the table that I showed on the first night, we do try to give you the apples to apples view by breaking out the supplementals from the base ongoing operations. So original proposed 26 budget growing 4.8% in that kind of base operating view. Again, the biggest pieces in there are the up to 5% merit increase, with personnel being about 50% of our operating budget and 2.5% on goods and services, blended to a 4.8. A lot of numbers on this table. I apologize. I just wanted to give a blowout of our general fund, breaking out personnel, professional services, supplies, et cetera, and then the percent of that general fund operating budget. The one that stands out is police. Police is about 20% of our general fund operating budget, and of that, police's personnel is about 80% of their budget. Obviously, people-heavy department.
Thank you for this kind of breakdown.
And then again, general fund's now collapsed at the top. The general fund is about 40% of our operating budget. That's really in line with a lot of local municipalities and peers. Sometimes it's even larger depending on what departments roll up to a general fund. So that's the percent of operating budget in the next to last column. And then when you include capital back in, the Housing Development Fund again stands out in 2026, total budget. Yes, John.
Sorry.
Just a little bit curious about the. Sorry. A little curious about the amount next to mayor and council, 332,000.
Great question. So our non-arts and culture grants, our other city grant program, lives in mayor and council. So that's
Bingo.
the biggest piece of that.
I knew it wasn't our wages.
Yeah.
Very good.
And then building on that, kind of at the end of night one, Bill also asked about internal service department or admin departments, FTEs. Didn't fully know where the little deep dive would go, so just a few slides on that. Looked at different mountain resort, western slope municipalities, as well as a few front range municipalities based on budget size, FTE count, population size. I'm always reminded that, even though our permanent population is small, we often operate with a budget, both on the revenue and expenditure side, closer to a population of 30 to 40,000. So we looked at finance, IT, HR, risk, communications, attorney, and the manager's office. And there's just a list of kind of peers that we pulled. Again, a lot of numbers on the slide, I apologize. City of Aspen's in bold, kind of at the top there. And then you can see the individual mountain and western slope towns and counties, and then an average of them as well. So,
A silly question for you, but you list our population as 6,566. I believe in the last census, it was just a hair over 7,000. Where's that data from for our population size?
great question. I can get the actual website that I pulled it from.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep, it's a non-census number.
Okay.
If you look at, there's even demographics in our digital budget book that they pull in, some like Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers and things. So yeah, we've trended down from like that 6,800 number down to that current number as a permanent population.
Okay, that was just, thank you.
I'll try to grab that website though.
Yeah, and as he says, we, with our guests and part-time visitors, we easily are 30 or 40,000 as a community we're governing.
Less notable in the winter when they're up on the hill than in the summertime when they're in town.
Well, I noticed that there seem to be some departments that we have more than average of other places, and other departments where we have less than average. And I think that perhaps the complexity of some of the issues we deal with, multiple funding sources for multiple dedicated programs. It's a little different in finance when you have these sharebacks and EOTC and everything else. Others, we may or may not have a different standard of care in some areas. So I appreciated the look, and I don't know if others had observations from reviewing the packet they wanted to comment on.
No, I'm appreciative for whoever did all the research on this. Thank you. I think it's important to gut check ourselves in this regard and other sort of similar benchmarking, and to make sure that we're not sort of not dedicating enough resources to something or being inefficient in something else.
Absolutely.
So, and I think this gives me comfort, so I'm satisfied with what I'm seeing.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Theirs versus the Front Range, similar kind of analysis there. Yeah, and really my only comment would be if you'd like for us to kind of continue research, deep dive into anything, we're just really looking for council direction on where to go next with this information. But if it,
We'll hold on to it for now. But I think it's good info. It really is, and I appreciate that.
Thanks. Then again, I pointed this out last week, 4 known adjustments from the original proposed budget, removing the 1 FTE, former director position from parking and transportation, and then the 3 additions to the budget, kind of net impact a little over $170,000. And I went ahead and rolled that in and updated this table. So there's our new net appropriation number. Again, just about 175,000 higher than the original proposed budget.
That's not bad.
Not too bad. Touched on this earlier in work sessions. 2 financial policy updates to extend the maximum length of interfund loans from 10 to 20 years, as well as updating our fixed asset capitalization thresholds. They've been at $5,000 for many years. Federal threshold is increasing to 10, doing a little peer analysis about what other mountain towns and front range towns are doing. Some of the Denver metro area is going up to $100,000. I don't think we're quite ready to do that. So we're proposing to take that up to $25,000. So again, smaller equipment like copy machines and things will no longer be capitalized, but vehicles and any larger equipment purchases still will. So small change. As well as one change to our city municipal code to update the language around unclaimed property to match new state law. So that's more administrative. And
So what is that state law? How long do we have to hold unclaimed property?
great question. Tyler Sexton sent it to me in an email before he went out on parental leave. I have it in my email, but I do not know it off the top of my head.
So the state's basically requesting that we start relinquishing unclaimed property to them at the end of every year, essentially, and they will disperse it. So we'll get it off of our books.
By the way, have you ever gone on that website where you put your name and your social security and it shows things that might be owed to you?
Old bank
It's
accounts you
incredible.
forgot about, or something
I
like
forget
that?
what it's called, but.
Yeah, it's a great Colorado Give Back or something
like
that
that, yeah.
the Secretary of Treasury does it. So this isn't about unclaimed property like someone left their scooter out.
It's usually checks that we issue back to somebody, and they don't cash them, and then
Okay.
they sit on our books as unclaimed until we basically turn them over to the
Yeah, I was
state.
kind of wondering what they actually were, so, very good,
Often very small dollar amounts.
yeah.
So those will be coming forward in November and December, separate from our budget resolution.
Okay. On the interfund loan that we're going to be updating, it was a long time ago, but it was always that we were paying a small percentage more to that fund than they would be able to get on the open market. Is that still part of the policy or not?
So the policy is setting it to the return on the treasury rates based on that duration of borrowing. So if it's a 10-year borrow, we pay based on the 10-year treasury. If it's a 20-year, we'll do a 20-year borrowing rate. So it's different, and actually in this case, it's right now more than what our pool would make for them.
Okay. What would the policy be if we did an interfund borrowing for 15 years? And on year 7, it was all nice, 3.5%, or something. But then inflation goes crazy and that year, inflation's 12%, in the next year. Would we have to modify the commitment to payment to repay if you ran into that sort of incredible inflationary environment?
So we're typically doing it where you're basically locking in as a fixed income option, just like we would on another type of.
Like a mortgage?
Yeah. So basically whatever the
It
20-year
doesn't
was
float.
at the time, we set the borrowing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay? Is there anything else or any other questions from council members? Well, thank you to all of our staff who stayed late to wait and see if we would be supportive of these proposals, and I think we're there.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present over the last 4 weeks.
Good job, man.
And what are our next?
Yep, sorry.
Yep.
Last slide, so everyone
steps?
knows
I
when we'll
thought
be
so.
back.
I was just about to say.
I'll be back on November 11th. If the budget resolution's fully ready, I'll bring it that night. If not, I'll bring it on the November 18th. First reading of fee ordinance and that potential change to the unclaimed property on November 11th, and second readings on November 18th. And then our mill levy, finally, we're kind of at the mercy of receiving final property valuation numbers from the county, but we're required by law to bring that to council for approval before December 15th.
Okay, and so December 15th is kind of the drop dead date. Let's just make sure we always have a quorum to do these kind of things we must pass budget by. In case anybody's going to be out of town or anything comes up, just let us know. Okay,
Thank you.
anything else? No? Great. Thank you again, Grassroots TV, and everyone else who has sat through for this. We really appreciate your attention to the whole business.
Yep, absolutely.
That was the one that caught my eye.
Well,